a thing. Yeah. Okay. So I hope that you may have gotten a chance to go through Dr. Tilina's video, which was shared during the last 2 weeks, and may have some sort of an understanding, I guess, what is UX, what is UI. So this course is called the user interface design. That is the kind of the main thing. But then there are two things that we are discussing with respect to the user interface design. That is, one thing we will talk about what we call the interaction design. And the other thing we'll talk about what we called design based on the user's experience. Okay, that is what is generally we call the UX design, and the other one is a UI design. So user interaction design, or sometimes people so call user interface design, but the more appropriate word is a user interaction design. So what is your understanding? How do you see these two things now? Okay, there were lots of things even the Dr. Tilina has shared the last time. So like to see your understanding about that. What is your difference with respect to the now, these two things? Course is known as a user interface design, but of course, user interface. So rather than coming to this one, so just, I mean, I invite someone to say their feelings and how do you think, or even you can put something on a chat box if you feel uncomfortable to speak, no problem, no harm. So how do you differentiate? User interface design and or user interaction design versus user experience design. Those are the two things that we will discuss in this course. Anyone willing to say something based on your understanding?
User experience design mean make something what others can feel, and
what others feel. User experience design.
Yeah,
what others feel.
Something what others can feel, or maybe what others feelings we can make something. Like
okay, so that is your opinion, the way you see, the based on that one. Yeah. Okay, before I go and explain, I like to ask someone else like to say the understanding of your with respect to UI design and the UX design. What is those two things? Look and feel of the designs. UX is look and feel with users friendly designs. Okay, good. Good suggestion on the chat box. Any other comments? Any other sharing? How do you see this UI and UX? Okay, let me very in a simple terms if I explain difference between these two things. Okay, most of the time we design the interface. Interface means technically that is what we will appears in front of us in order to use something. I mean, even if you can think about your on room. I mean, the most probably all of you may be, including me, in your study room, I guess, in the home, where you have placed your books, materials, everything is around. So in this is a three-dimensional space, you have lots of things around you. So that is the interface between you and the materials around you. So in a simple term, actually we live in a kind of a world where the interface is surrounded by us. So that's how we see. Now, when we go to an in front of computer, all of you will have a computer now, or maybe a tab or smartphone, and you can see a screen. Okay, you can see right now sharing this slide set, and you are linked with me using the Zoom. And then also what you can see, there is a voice you can hear, okay, in addition to what you see. And also you can see some text messages appearing on textbooks. And if you click the participants, you can see now 27 of the students right now logged into the session. So 27 people are connected, okay, through this session right now. So it's a kind of the interface that appears in front of all of us. And we use that interface to interact with the others, and we start using. So that is what is a kind of a thing in a Zoom session. Most probably the interface appears. And probably if you, I think the first time when you start using the Zoom, if I ask you, there may be different time. The first day, it may be very difficult for you to understand how things are really organized. What are the buttons that you have to press? Sometimes you may press it the wrong way. Sometimes it's a nice thing you may think about. You can interact with all your friends and the others, but the issue is there. It will be a totally new thing, and you are not very sure about how. And it may be a very nice an interaction, but after a few times, I mean, when you start using, maybe after a few weeks, you know the interface become more familiar to you, and you are very comfortable. You know how things happens. The beginning, it is not very comfortable, but slowly it becomes a kind of a friendly thing where you can use it. Okay. So what has happened? If you carefully think, the interface is nice and very something new to you, but you at the beginning, if you don't have any experience, you find a kind of a gap between you and the system, because you have to familiarize, you have to get some experience, exposure into that one, then only you can use it in a more comfortable way. So this is what we call, okay, experience. So all of us have different types of an experience. It's not the same experience. So the experience is something that change the way how we use the things. Okay. The interface is something appears in front of us that maybe have design based on the features and other thing. And this will be sometimes, if it is some interfaces are very difficult to understand, we have to struggle. We don't know what can we do with, what can't we do with. Then we face lots of a problem there. But some interfaces are very simple and easy and very nice and easily can understand. So however, that is the way how when things are organized, designed, how it appears in front of us, and some of us may be able to quickly capture that interface. So the people who develop the interfaces should put in a kind of in a good way to design the interface where it's an attractive, should be very attractive, and also should be able to use. So probably there are lots of things. And user experience design is based on the how people have their background. I mean, probably the previous experience. It's something it always happens. Now, Zoom is the tool that right now we use for this video conferencing thing. But there are so many other similar tools. I hope you know. Microsoft MST, and then you have something called the Skype, and many tools, long list of the things. Some of you may already have an experience. Suppose if you have to go for a new tool, what will happen? Your previous experience matters a lot. If the previous experience helps you to quickly get into that one. But if you have to struggle a lot, you find very difficult to do it. So there are two methodologies, so what we call the two philosophies with respect to the design. One design where we design to improve the interaction, okay? Interaction when someone comes to a particular, start accessing a particular system. So logically we organize in a very good visual way where people can understand easily and how do they. But in that process, we never think about their past experience and what they know it. And most of the time, we do that one just only to identify the way how the interaction should be designed. But more stronger methodology, philosophy too for the design is to get the individual user's past experience and based on the past experiences to design. So then you may confuse, okay, both seems to be the same. And what is the difference, UI and UX? In the UX, we consider the bigger scope. I think even if you looked at the Dr. Tillina's last 2 weeks session, you will realize interaction design is a subset of the user experience design. User experience design, we consider the interface more than the interface user's experience, and then we design based on it. Okay, more than the way that the visually we wanted to put things appears. So the bigger scope is always comes with there, where you really now in the present methodologies are more towards the UX design, and he explained in his video. I remember 3 paradigms. Okay, at the very first paradigm where he talked about the paradigm of the man-machine paradigm. Okay, where people trying to put machine in a way which helps the people to use it. So organize the machine, and then people start working on the second paradigm is what I say the interaction design. Okay, now which helps the people to do it, and the third one is based on the experience of the user. We design something. So those are the 3 levels now. 3 generations. So we are in the 3rd generation. This is where you see lots of people say UX, 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 and but all these things are passing. So the UI is in a kind of a subset of a UX, but UI still plays in a very, very important. So that's why even in this course, Dr. Tillina will talk on the more on the UX side. I'll talk on the UI side. It's in a subset at one side, but UI is the second paradigm. It's also very, very important. I mean, the experience as well as interaction both goes together. Okay, if you try to separate these 2 things, it fails. If I tell you in a small story, kind of a personal experience, I think this happened long time ago, where I was at my home, and always my mother complains to me, I don't keep my room in a clean and a very organized manner. Always I put things here and there. It's still the same problem. I mean, the most of the time. And she complains to me, and but I always promise to clean the room and keep it very nice, appears and fully organized. But most of the time, I'll do only half of that, and it's not properly organized, and it doesn't looks like I was not well organized. Someone who looks at me think, okay, it's not well organized. So one day, what happened when I went to, maybe it was when I was in university, if I remember. She came to my room and she started clean the room and organized in a well nice way, putting all the books and everything based on their sizes and organized the whole room very nicely. So when I went in the evening, my goodness, the room is a fantastic, nicely cleaned, and everything is organized and put all these things in a proper places. It's like in a hotel room, in a hotel room, and I couldn't even understand how it looks like. But then I realized what a mess is that. Everything. I mean, she knows nothing about the things which I am using, and everything is mixed. My goodness, I couldn't even explain to her because she was thinking about the interface part and the interaction, and she has kept all the books in a proper places where I can easily move it and take it, not putting other things, and based on their sizes, she has put all these things and well organized, but it is well organized with respect to the appearance. It is not organized with respect to my experience and the requirement. So it became a big mess, the whole room for me. And this is the good example which comes to my mind always to differentiate the UI and the UX when I explain the whole context. So you really need to understand these two things together. And well organized is very, very important. It doesn't underline, but at the same time, the individual experience, requirement, those things has to be. But very important thing for the both of them, the user is the center. We call it the user centered. I mean, we do the both considering the user. He is the main client, in other words, because always we have to do that one. UI design or UX design is based on the user. Okay, so it's the same user, but the way we develop, so the interaction design is facilitate the people. And I have one question. I mean, this is not a lecture. I don't want to do it again, but wanted to interact with you. What is the difference between an interface and interaction? Can someone say, or can someone put on a text box? Give me the 1 minute. You can put me in time. Your answer.
So isn't that the interface is what we can see and interaction with how we get in touch with that?
Sorry, I just got a call and had to answer, but yeah. So what is your opinion, or how do you see the difference between interface and interaction? What is an interface? What is an interaction? How do you answer that question?
Isn't it like that interface is what we can see and interaction is how we get in touch with that?
Mm-hmm. How getting in touch with that interaction? Interaction and interface. Interface is how things appears. Okay, it may be visually, it may be in audible way, in some form, it will appear to the user. Okay, so we say the interface is a kind of an intermediate things that comes between the user and the kind of a device. In our case, is a computer, the machine that appears between, because the main thing, it finds very difficult to use the other things inside. Maybe the technically may not be very comfortable for us. So it's some kind of a layer that you can think about is a layer that appears between the user and the system. Okay, and even when you go to a hotel, the reception is the main interface in a kind of a way where you always interact through the reception. Okay, even if you come to any place, I mean, the reception desk is the starting point where you will be get the instruction and the other thing. So then probably the interaction, it's something, a communication that happens between you and the interface. For example, when you go for a particular place, hotel or somewhere, there must be a reception counter, and you will go to that one, and you really need to communicate with them. Okay, you may verbally ask if you can't speak in a language where the people there can't understand, you have no problem. So there may be, when you ask something the other party can't understand, or if you can't understand what they say, you will also have no problem. So the interaction is a communication that happens between you and the interface. Okay, so remember, the interface is always a layer between the user and the system. And we have built this layer specially to facilitate the communication with the system, because a direct communication with the system is very difficult and hard. And therefore, what will be the advantage will be when you have it very easier to go to. So the reception metaphor is a good thing that you can consider. So even in the computer, we have the similar thing. Everywhere you have the interfaces are built, but the interfaces may be nice. Sometimes the reception desk will be very nicely built, but the person and the other things, if they can't communicate, the interaction may become harder. So always when a user goes, the first thing appears is the interface. The next thing is he needs to use that one. Interaction comes on top of it. So that is the difference that you really need to keep in mind. So I got another feedback saying interaction determines how users will use the elements, and the interface determines looks of the elements. Yes, very good. So that is what we, so in the interface, we show how the elements are organized. Okay, interaction determines how the user will communicate with these elements. So then someone would ask, then what is the relationship should be between the interaction and interface? If someone asks that question, how do you answer in that context? Can you think about in a way? Just type anything, even doesn't matter, even if it is wrong. How do you say the relationship between the interface and the interaction? I'll give you 2 minutes for you to think about. Interaction determines how users can use the elements of the interface. Okay, that's it. Yeah, I will repeat the question. I mean, what is the relationship between interface and interaction? Now, I explain, we see the interaction and interface. So we say what are these two things? So how do you define or how do you describe the relationship between the interaction and interface? How the interaction will help to, is there any way that helps the people to design the interface? Okay, let's think about this way. Interfaces also always should design or develop to maximize the interaction. Interaction is a communication, in other words, communication that happens between the two things. So if you develop the interfaces in a poor interfaces, what will happen? Interaction may not be very good. So the goal of developing the interface is what? To maximize the use of maximize the interaction. So that is the overall goal, always do it. You may have heard sometimes in a word called the user-friendly interfaces, UID, user-friendly interfaces. So is a friendly means here if this interaction becomes in a very convenient, interesting, and things like that. So any question, anything, if you have it, I'm happy to answer. And these concepts you really need to understand and get into there. Lots of content is there as in a master's program, but these are the core things people really need to understand. So you really need to think about. So interaction design, I think Dr. Tilin also explained lots of things very nicely about in his video lecture, if you got a chance. So if you didn't get, please go through that one, very important, how this interaction comes. By the way, I just like to share a small video. I think it was, I uploaded that one into the one, but I want all of you to watch this one now. Okay, this is something I enjoy most of the time. It's called this is in a very popular, I hope you can see the screen. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So popular lady on who have talked long time ago. This is a very old video, but still I enjoy it. So like to say, but the question is this: what is interaction design? So interaction design. So let's see what she says. Okay. Watch this one.
So if I were to sum up interaction design in a sentence, I'd say that it's about shaping our everyday life through
I
digital
hope you can hear.
artifacts
Am I correct?
for work, for play,
The video?
and for entertainment.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
When we go out and buy something for our house, we don't just buy a toaster because it will toast things for us. We buy it also because of what it looks like, what it says about us. With an electromechanical object, like a radio, for instance, you have a mixture of physical mechanical things and electronic things. But with computer things, there isn't that necessarily connection between physical things and virtual things, things on the screen. So you can actually design them so that what we see on the screen can be completely unconnected to what's going on inside the computer. One of the things I think we need is a clear mental model of what it is that we're interacting with. So for instance, HyperCard, which was an early scripting system on the Apple, had a very clear mental model which was of a stack of cards. You need to know where you are in the system. You need to know what you can do next, where you can go, and what's going to happen when you've gone there. And I think that the Star interface and the Apple Macintosh interface were very, very important in this way, that with a menu at the top of your screen, you have laid out for you all the possibilities, and it's very clear to see how you access them, what you can do, and what's going to happen. How can we make sure that people don't have to think about how to interact? A very nice example of this, I think, was in Quark Express, where you could zoom in a very simple way. You just didn't think about it at all. You just did it. Driving a car is another example of something that, having learnt it, we do instinctively. We don't need to spend very many mental cycles on the actual driving part. We can talk to our friends, we can think about what we've got to buy on our shopping list, and we can do them all simultaneously. When we design a computer-based system or a machine, we're designing not just what it looks like, but how it behaves. And we're designing the quality of the way we interact with it. And this is really what interaction design is. It's designing this quality. When I move my mouse, for instance, does it feel sluggish? Is it nippy and sprightly? If you're playing a game, the kind of interaction and the kind of attention you're prepared to give to it is very different from if you're programming your central heating, for instance. If you're designing a fire alarm system, the last thing that you want is something that's just kind of difficult to find your way around and intriguing. You want it clear, unambiguous, direct. Interaction design needs a fusion. It's not just visual, it's not just sound, it's a mixture of things that happen over time, visual things, sonic things, moving images, and we need to draw on existing disciplines to make a new type of design, which is interaction design.
Okay, that's the some of the important thing that I wanted to say. What is your idea? What did you get it from that? Okay. Now, you heard her explanation about the interaction design. Huh? What is any keyword which is you can remember in her small video with respect to the interaction design? Anything that you would like to get it? So any keyword that you can remember in the video, she said.
Easy to access.
Easy to access. That's the kind of a goal in the interaction design. So the main objective is to make it easy. Yes, as you said, friendly. People need to be very comfortable. I mean, that's what I told you earlier. Make the communication more effective and very comfortable. So we really need to do it. That's some sort of a thing that we really have to consider. So then one of the things. Any other keyword, any other thing? She said lots of things in that small 3 minutes video. What can you remember those keywords at least? Did you hear a word called the mental model? What is really a mental model? Have you ever heard a term called the mental model before? Yeah. What is the mental model? Have you heard the word called mental model earlier?
No.
No. Okay. When I say a model, okay, now most of the time it is in a kind of a structure. Okay. Now, for example, whenever you see a chair, you can recognize it. You may, when you go to a furniture shop or some other places, you will see so many different types of the chairs. But no difficulty. You identify what is a chair, what is a table. You easily differentiate. Why? The physical structure that you see there, I mean, the model is in a kind of a physical structure. That what you, it's a kind of maybe in a pattern, I would say, that you use to identify the things. So in our mind, so many models are there. That is what is built in our mind. I mean, there's so many, we can recognize anything around us. I mean, how do we recognize? We always match them. And then through this matching, we identify. And we can differentiate. I mean, even an animal, if you looked at the dogs on there, I mean, there's so many different types of the dogs, but you know who is a dog, who is a cat. Some cats may looks like a dogs, but there will be, then it's a model has an issue there. But generally, those models are there. So these models are stored in our mind, and we retrieve them, match with the things, and then identify. So a mental model, in other words, it's what that, can you think about, and a mental model means what? In a some way, it is the understanding about something. Do you agree? I mean, in the mental model helps us to understand, and this understanding vary from one person to another person. It is not fixed. At the same time, when I say understanding, at beginning of this lecture, you may have one understanding, but at the end of the lecture, you will have another understanding. So every moment in our life, our understanding will change. What does it mean? Our mental model will change. Okay, the mental model is the one which helps us to provide or facilitate us for the interaction. This is very, very, very important thing that we really need to understand. So if you want to design or develop an interaction for some people, you need to have some understanding about the mental model of the people. Okay, so if I further explain, we were talking about the UX side, about the experience. What is this experience, in other words? This experience is the one that changed the mental model. Okay, so mental model, is it a fixed thing or dynamic thing? Static or dynamic, we call it. What do you think? It is dynamic. It's not a fixed. At the beginning, when it is a totally what we call a new thing, our understanding is very weak, then our mental model will be very small, maybe not very higher level. It's a kind of an abstract thing, and at the same time, this abstract thing is the one which we use it. It's not an affine things like an object-oriented things. It's an abstract. I mean, that's how you recognize something as a chair. But this abstract model is being developed. Especially our experience helps. In the user interface context, what you see is there. It's the one this interaction is the one that developed the mental model. So we call it that way, okay? Interaction develops the mental model of a user. So very important term that we discuss in this course. I mean, if you go through that one, you will see lots of things. And again, everything, I mean, everything we do is based on some sort of a model, okay? And we will see this mental model, it's everywhere. Now, I wanted to ask some more questions from you about the mental models. I mean, the mental model is inside you, and your thinking, is it based on the mental model? Your thinking and the mental model, how they goes together? What is the relationship? How do they work? Any ideas?
So can you tell the question again if you don't mind?
Yeah, I mean, how the this mental model and the thinking of the person works together. I mean, the mental model, as I explained to you, it's a something, every person has it. But how do we think when we wanted to do something? How our thinking process works with the mental model? What do you think? How our thinking process work with respect to mental model?
It's depend on the previous experience, I think.
It depends on the previous experience. Yes, so the previous experience, as we discussed, is something that helps to develop the mental model. Okay. Then we think when we wanted to do something, okay, when I want to do something, then suppose, I mean, the good example is, suppose I got a new TV in my home, and the TV has a remote control. And always I'll take it to my hand and wanted to now do something. I also try, it's a new thing for me. So, but however, I have a mental model of my previous TV and its remote control. And that abstract thing, based on it, I'll start trying out. I'm trying to understand the new thing based on my previous understanding. So previous experience, in other words, is documented or abstracted into what we call the mental model. And this mental model is the one that people use to explore or to learn about the new thing. So we always expect the model to be similar to what we have in our minds. Is I mean, that's right, you are correct. Similar. So through that, we are trying to do it. I mean, even if there is a button with a red color, this may be on and off. This is a critical thing. That's just the based on our experience. We know the red means, okay, maybe more starting point or end point of the thing. So people try to understand. So the shape of the color, the icon on the buttons, and then all these things based on their previous experience, the model, they're trying to explore. What we call the exploration happens based on this mental model. So this is really an important thing that everybody needs to understand. I have another small question, and I hope majority of the people know how to ride on a bicycle. Okay, but cycling is not a new. I mean, automatically happens like a swimming. Cycling is something you have to practice at beginning. So you have to start playing, pushing the bicycle, then trying to balance the bicycle. So those who have experience, I guess, at very beginning, it's a tough experience. There's a tough exercise for people to learn how to ride the bicycle. I remember that always balancing is a very nervous and trying to think about how to balance and also break it, and always expecting something goes wrong and slowly try to balance and start. But gradually that becomes a simple thing. Then what happens? When you become an experienced person to ride on a bicycle, you don't think about the balance in the bicycle, don't you? It becomes something you do without thinking. Lots of things in our life we do without thinking. When we want to do it, we become a robot type of a people in the life. So then what happens? In that context, it's we interact, in other words, without thinking. At the beginning of riding the bicycle, we'll have to think about, but we have to think about how to ride the bicycle. But when you become a more experienced, we don't think about it. So later in the life, you start, ride, suppose when you become a very good rider, you start enjoying the road and the environment, and you may consider about the other vehicles, and you will get into start enjoying your ride. You are not going to think about the bicycle balancing. So very interesting theory comes there with respect to the interaction. What is the theory? At beginning, people are more concentrating on their interaction. But when they become a more familiar, or what we call experienced people, they never wanted to think about it. They want to do this one in automated. We call this unconscious interaction. Unconscious interaction. So interaction without thinking. Interaction without thinking. I hope my spelling is correct. Unconscious, SOC, unconscious, CI, interaction. So just check it, okay? Unconscious interaction. Interaction without thinking. So every interaction goes to this level. So when people become, what is this philosophy is very nicely explained. The beginners, okay? So when they become an experience, so beginners, so every user becomes from a beginner to experienced user. So they become, when they experience, people are not thinking. The driving is a good example. Most of the people, I hope many of you have some driving license with you. The beginning you will be more concentrating, but what happened later, you start thinking about your other problems while driving, or start talking with someone else, so those other things, but we just drive the vehicle, most of us. So as you can remember the way what happens, he was explaining the person who is talking to the phone while driving. So this becomes a very something called unconscious interaction. Any question on this one? I mean, looks like I'm speaking too much. I want to use this one to get your questions, interact. Because these things are in the slides I have told and talked about, but try to see. So this is, you can think about an unconscious interaction is maximizing the interaction. And if somebody wants to design the interaction, we wanted to design an interaction where at one day people will do things without thinking. Okay, so if that level, if you can achieve, that is the end goal of the whole process of this interaction design. Any question based on that? If you don't understand it clearly, any point which is not very clear, do not hesitate, because this is a conversation and a dialogue. I wanted to have you to make it understand about the subject matter. Okay, if you don't have a question, I am going to ask a question. She was talking in the video something called the quality of interaction. What is that? Can someone say? What is the quality of interaction? How do you measure the quality of interaction? In other words,
How fast we can interact with the system?
how fast you can interact with it. So you may think about you are trying to think about one parameter. So efficiency or the time that you spend. Okay. Yeah. So you may define the quality, yeah, within that parameter. So you will be satisfied if you can quickly get a reply for your question. Okay. If it takes some time, you are not happy. You will judge your quality factor based on the time that it takes to get the reply, because we always have to keep interaction means two-way communication. So interaction means what? Interaction is always two-way communication. When I say two-way communication, what is that? Now, I am talking to how many people right now? 27 people. But few people reply to me verbally, few people, and very few, and then some people use the chat box. So the communication, those audio, textual communication within a very few number of people. Fortunately, if everybody 27 starts speaking or trying to put it, my goodness, I will be in a big trouble. But we always like to interact. I mean, when I say if someone reply or some messages comes, we will be very happy and satisfied. I mean, if that doesn't happen, that interaction will be dead. I say dead because when someone dies, other people starts crying, okay? But dead body will not react to that. Life is so. So the living things or living things or maybe some objects, if can react to a particular input, then only this two-way communication could happen. Interaction is based on that. Okay, so always keep it in mind. So the quality of interaction is judged by the reaction that comes to the user from the system. Yeah, that is another thing. The two-way communication is sending and receiving responses, a communication medium. Yes, quality of interaction, how well the user expectation is met. Yes, that's the other thing. So earlier we find the quality of interaction, we discuss in several ways. The factors wise, one thing is the timing, you can say. Then the satisfaction, as you just suggested. That is. So maybe, I mean, if the expectation is met as you suggested, so then you are quite happy. I mean, you go to the reception center and you ask something, if the reception person didn't give a proper answer, then you are unsatisfied. You may give it in 1 second, but that is not what you expect. So satisfaction, quality. Any other thing? Any other parameters that you use to judge the quality of interaction? Reliability. Or if the answer is given the reliability. So the main thing is reliability. Can you identify the reliability immediately? But if the answer is not correct, or the response comes is wrong, then probably what will happen if the reliability is poor, people lose what? People lose what? They lose the confidence, or they will not trust the system. So if they don't trust the other side, I mean, this two-way communication, I mean, always the trust model matters a lot. If the other party, if you are not believing, what will happen in the communication? It becomes very unproductive communication. I mean, this is very nicely said in Buddhism, Viswasa Parama Jnati. I hope some of you may know about it. The Viswasa, it's what you believe. Okay, if you don't believe the other people, what they say, okay, if you, I mean, in the society, when lots of news items comes, sometimes we don't believe it at all, because we know that next day they will say another story. And this society also creating the communication structure, you can easily bring down the trust. If you don't have a trust, then it becomes very unproductive. The quality comes down definitely. So the reliability always goes with another things. Why the reliability is so important? To establish what? A good trust. Because sometimes, you know, if one thing goes wrong, it is very critical. But that is not good. I mean, there is a possibility any time and a mistake, so wrong information may come out. We always have to expect. But in the human nature, people always strongly expect a trust model in the communication. It's an interaction. So always that is very powerful. So the trust is linked with also the trust will affect the belief. Belief is also a psychological thing. People comes with this interaction. I mean, if you don't believe something, what will happen? You are not going to accept at all. And the most of the thing in our society, I mean, in our life, even the if you look at the religion, okay, it's everything depends on what we believe, and that is our belief is a critical factor. If that belief is not there, you are not going to accept it at all. So how do you believe something? That is the next question. This is more towards into the philosophical discussion, but how do you believe something? What is the basis to believe something? Anyone willing to say something? I'm talking about the underlying most important component of a interaction. Okay. So I'll go to a more theoretical. So the belief or believe. Okay. How happens? How do you believe? What is actually the source or force behind believing something? What is the source of believing? I'm talking to the postgraduate students. I hope that they can react to what I say. Belief is sourced most of the time is based on some source where we assume that is true. Okay. And we assume, or it may be based on our experience. Most of the time it happens. I mean, we do it. We start believing lots of things in this world because why? Others believe. If you carefully look at, I mean, the way how things happen in our life as a small kids to up to now, in the parents, when they do something, what happens? We first, I mean, anyone's the strongest person or someone believe is a mother, because it's a biologically we were connected from the very belief, and without what the mothers and the parents says, they believe. And if they do something, we believe. So the belief network is carefully built because others are doing it. But gradually, at a later stage, you may not believe what your mother believes. You may challenge to that one because you may get in a different experience. You may observe many different things. So the belief is also a kind of a function then. It is not going to remain forever. It changes. So interaction, I think it's a very success of the interaction depends on what? It depends on this belief. I mean, if that belief was disturbed, if something has happened after that, interaction becomes big issue. I mean, this is a common theory, in all the relationship with what we have with the others, even a friend or in the family or whatever. If one thing goes wrong after that, you always start what is the opposite of the belief? Tell me, what is the opposite of the belief? I hope that you can hear me. Yeah?
Yeah, we can hear you.
What is the opposite of the belief? Suspect. Vichikicha, on the other words. I mean, if you think about Buddhist philosophy, is something that I personally enjoy a lot. But it is what we call if you suspect. I mean, we suspect everything at one stage. Both these two things is in part of our life. The user is a human being. He has both these factors. He believes and he suspects. It's in a kind of a combination of these two things. So we never believe everything. We don't suspect everything. But both these things are mental matters. That mental matters affects for our interaction as well as the interaction. So even what we say or what we receive, it's something like that. So very important things when you start exploring this quality of interaction. So there are so many other factors with respect to the quality of interaction. Something else? Efficiency and effectiveness. What is the difference between those two things? Efficiency and effectiveness. Efficiency, I said, I mean the timing. Most of the time, efficiency means the timing. The timing matters a lot for us. We are in a very hurried mode. We always need a quickly, in 1 second, everything, all the problems should be shown. We need to move forward. Efficiency. What is the effectiveness? Okay, I help you. What is effectiveness? Interactions are not going to be arbitrary things that happens. Interaction is always, there is a reason for the interaction. It is not some sort of I mean, we always use systems, interact with systems, interfaces. We wanted to do some work done. There is a task to be done always. If we have a task to be done, at the end, we should be able to do and get that work done and completed. If we fail to do that one, that's the whole process of interaction is a failure and the waste of the time, you would say. So the effectiveness is judged based on your goal or objective, what you had it at the beginning of the interaction. And if you can achieve it at the end, I mean, the interaction start with an objectives and you could say goal or some sort of objectives. And if the objective is achieved, then your problem is solved and you have an outcome. So then you say effective. Yeah, that was another suggestion. Go align with the previous behavior and data, behavior or data intent. Okay. Can you explain what do you mean by go align with previous behavior and the data intent? Do you mean an example? Why we are so worried about the previous things? We always like auto fetching user data in a form fillings. Okay, you went to a very technically and experience that you have. Yes, most of the time we like to see things in a very familiar way. I say it's a foreign when it is in a completely new thing. The familiarity is one thing we always say. So the previous, when you use the word previous, it means what? A familiarity. The familiarity is something we expect. If it is an unfamiliar, it's in a foreign for us. Interaction, what will happen if it is an unfamiliar thing? The interaction is not very smooth. It's a new thing. So always we expect a familiar. Things will help us to have a better interaction. Okay. If you go to a place which you know, and if you have an experience of that place, you are familiar with that. I mean, suppose you have to go to a hospital first time to that place, it's a completely first time. Then you find very foreign place. You need to, suppose if you visit the same place few times, then it becomes your working place. Okay, maybe even after few. So always familiarity is our previous experience. We always try to identify, judge, and do these things. Okay, so even always get the past thing. That's why even you said this past entered data pop up and people quickly pick that thing. That will increase their productivity, efficiency. Yeah, that help the people. So that's another important factor that may comes in the quality of interaction. So these things actually I have discussed in a different ways within the recorded slides, and in my slides I have explained some of the things, but I thought I'll take these points for the discussion to create the interest, because subject matter is very, very important. So user experience design and user interface, the interaction design, UID, yeah. So ultimately, I mean, someone would ask, why are you talking about the UX and UI? At the end, it is nothing but what we talk about, one interface, both the interaction and experience through both. We built an interface which facilitate people to continue a friendly communication and get their work done. So it's in a two mechanism based on the users, creating the organizing the environment and getting. So the both directions, UI, I see personally UXD is in a one direction, one approach. UID or user interaction design is the other approach, but both targets to one thing, that is user-friendly interface. Okay. Someone could ask, can I see the good interfaces are not visible, invisible? Okay. So invisible, I mean, this is later we will talk about little bit what we call natural interfaces. It's not an artificial thing. It becomes a part and parcel of the whole thing. I mean, through the computer, we have to some extent, what is we have, it is an artificial interface, we could say. But the natural interfaces are the things that may happen in a very smooth way. Yes. So, I think these points what I discussed, the recorded thing I will also upload for you to, if someone, those who didn't come can also watch. And but most important thing, yeah, any question, anything, not only what I just explained to you with respect to the interaction and these two approaches and other stuff, but any other matters, if you like to really would like to come, so please do not hesitate to ask. Mhm.
So when we come to the industry, the UX is only related to software industry or any other fields?
Truly speaking, UX is related to the product design, any product. Now, if you looked at the whole world, we talk about in the software industry, the software products, most of the things will come there. Yes, that's a specific things. I mean, I always say it is an intangible interfaces. Okay, but the product design, when you talked about, we always like to think. Now, if I take it for example, chair. Why we have so many different types of chairs? People, how do they come up with those chairs? I mean, the people collect the feedback. I mean, any product, people collect the feedback, then they develop things to based on the experience of the people to create a good environment. Yeah, they can use the product effectively. Most of the time, we get a lot of nice things, but we can't use it. I mean, what is important thing in a long run? I mean, sometimes when you do the shopping, sometimes you may when nice things you see, it's a very attractive, and you will be like to buy it. Maybe any product, anything, but later you realize it appears very nice, but when you start using it, it's not very comfortable. Okay, interaction becomes an issue. And also always this judgment come based on what? Your experience. I remember, I mean, this is a common thing, even when in the university time when we were there was an open joke. Nice things, I mean, especially when people are looking for a partners, they will say, I mean, some nice things are long term not very usable. Okay, but it is an open joke when we were in the university. So people always say, so everywhere, I mean, every product is like, I mean, sometimes we buy lots of things, but then they become lots, and at the same time, some of the product, so many features, but we don't use even software as well as the other things. Even a mobile phone, how many features are we using? Even the Microsoft Word, I read somewhere it has around 9,000 now, or more than 7,000 or 9,000. I can't exactly remember. Features. I mean, the facilities, you can do lots of excellent thing, but I don't think I am using less than 100, maybe the 100 or less than that. I can't remember. I have never counted. But sometimes lots of product come with so many facilities. But then, so what we really need to get a simple thing based on our requirement. I mean, the features are very important, but features need to present based on the way how we can take our working forward. They becomes very strong. So even the UX design is not only for software, the whole thing, anything, any product design, any lots of things. I mean, this is where sometimes the people talk about innovation. Innovation comes if you can start thinking from the end user's point of view. Most of the decisions we are taking now in the interaction design and the user experience design, biggest criticism, interaction design, we design by logically thinking this will work in that way. Okay. But hardly we think about from the user's point of view. I mean, my personal, another small experience, sometimes when we go now, we don't go. And earlier when we go for somewhere, we go and stay in a hotel. And all of you may have an experience, I guess. And that is a very good experience and very nice and properly. It's not like in the house when you go and spend a few days in a hotel. But hope some hotels, some rooms are very good. Some people, one, are not very good. It's the way how things are being organized. But at the end of the day, east or west, home is best. Why we say so? Because that is the place where we have our experience. We may like to enjoy, but it's the things are organized based on it. Yeah. Any question? Yes, thank you.
So in this course, do we have any practicals on how we are going to design user interfaces and interactions?
Yes. We want to, I'm discussing with Dr. Tilina that we will use some tools, prototype tools, which you can use to develop. I mean, this is, as I said in the very first lecture, we are not going into a very, there are lots of tools available which you can use to design small prototypes which you can experiment. Okay. And I'll discuss with Dr. Tilina to organize that tutorial series which will go where you can learn. And the last time also we did a few tools like that. But this year we will add in a couple of new tools, and most of these tools are helpful for people to develop interfaces for things. I think wireframes tools commonly known as, and created some prototype mockups, and that's what we will target. But a tool like an Adobe DX, I think you may have heard. Those things people can use to design some nice things. Yes, we'll do that. So what I wanted to ask all of you, please spend some time. Okay, I wanted to stop share with the, okay, you can see the screen. So please spend some time to going through. Now we have completed introduction one, and also I will spend some time on talking about the human factors. Dr. Tin has already talked about it, but I'm talking about from the interaction design point of view. He will talk about from the user experience design point of view. He has done. So in the next week, I'll talk a little bit about the user side. So I'll appreciate if you can have a look at that one. At least go through the notes and come. So you can see what are the main things. So we talk about different channels, how very simple. Memory management, human thinking and problem solving, human errors, and when using computer types of users. So very in a brief way, have a quick look on those things. Okay. I'm sorry, my slides are usually very lengthy, and when I start talking, I talk a lot of things. So sometimes it's maybe you may feel too much, but yes, of course, these things are very interesting. You can just glance it, or if you have a time, you can watch. I have recorded things. There are 3 parts. Okay, the whole thing I put into the things, and then also there is a discussion. I'll keep it active, but this is Dr. Tilina's part. You may have already seen, and then I have activated a small quiz for you to do it if you have finished that one. So please do that one also. So you have 2 attempts, part of a continuous assessment. The discussion forums are also important. People can share their experience, feedback, and the question, and the others can comment. We'll have this section also. I will summarize some of the most important thing. I mean, the keywords, what I said it today, please keep it in mind. And this is a part, I think, the interaction design and the conceptual interaction. So taking what I explained to you more towards, I think this diagram is a very, very important. So what Dr. Tin has put it in slides and the video. So I'm talking about small stuff, but really user experience design is a bigger one. Okay, it's the one which is the now current trend is UX. But this is the nuclear, and the core thing is here. Okay, So with that, we'll go to the after that evolving technologies and other thing. So have a time with that, and later then you can really come out. Okay. Yeah, so that's all what I'm planning to do for the today, but any question, anything? I'm happy to answer. Okay, so then thank you very much for the participation, and I hope that this helped you to learn the subject matter a little bit better, and this is an interesting thing. So spend your time to learn it, and hope that will definitely help you to improve your experience, ability, especially since all of you will have to do a project in this semester. I mean, this course will definitely help all of you because this software development project, innovative project ideas. So you say experience design. Sometimes the people think about very kind of a very primitive way, like in a, it's natural, I mean, like in a software product. But always we'll have to think about from the user side and try to think about this thing. I mean, always we say the master's project should be innovative projects, not like in undergraduate projects. So they should be high level. But if you try to think like the only based on the basic thing, you may not be able to find an innovative idea. So try to think about a system with a technical plus people. Okay, the system is built technical plus people. So with that formula, you will find lots of things which you have to address. So where are the innovative solutions you can identify when you try to address them. Okay, thank you very much. So we will end the session now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.